call the meeting to order of the Sweetwater County School District Number 1 Board of Trustees. If you would please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, Mrs. West, if you would conduct the roll call, please.
Mr. Reedy?
Here.
Mr. Vitolo?
Here.
Mr. Mickelson?
Here.
Mr. Hay?
Here.
Mrs. Thompson? Here. Mr. Jackman?
Here.
Chairman Jellicoe?
Here. I would entertain a motion to approve the agenda.
So moved.
It's been moved by Mr. Mickelson. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Hay. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Motion passes. We do have an addendum. So if I could have a motion to approve the addendum.
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Jackman,
Second.
second by Mrs. Thompson. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion passes. Okay, item number 3A, under superintendent's reports, we have a facilities update. Dan? Yeah, he's
Go
here.
ahead. Stephanie's going to go ahead and start us off
Okay,
for just 1 second.
okay. I'll go get the microphone, Zach.
Can you hear me okay? Zach, we good? All right, hello, everybody. My name is Stephanie Tolman, and I am the Chief Information Officer for the school district. And I just wanted to take a minute before Dan's facilities update to do a quick presentation on our swivel cameras. They arrived this afternoon. So my staff has been working very hard all afternoon. We've trained groups of people that are going to be going into buildings starting tomorrow to walk our teachers through it. But I just wanted to give you a quick demonstration of kind of how this works and how it will look for our staff. So what we have right here is the actual swivel robot on a tripod. Make sure I got all my crazy stuff hidden here. In the back of it, there's a charging station for the remote or the lanyard that teachers will wear that has built-in audio. I'm just gonna put this in here. And just to kind of show you how this will look for our teachers and our students, I'm gonna pretend like I'm doing a class and start a Google Meet. So Zach will share everything once we get it up. All right, so I have a meeting started here. I'm gonna sign into the swivel. I'm going to open the swivel application, which actually automatically pops up. Zach, do you want me to turn it around the other way so that you can see it on the camera? See if I got it. Oh, it helps if you turn the remote on. Okay. So I'm going to flip this around so that we can see it on our camera here so that people at home can see. So all our teachers will need to do is start a live stream and select the Google Meeting. From there. Sorry, I'm sorry, Zach. I'm usually really good about that. Okay, once they jump in the meeting, they're going to click join a meeting. And Zach, will you read me off the code, please?
Golf, India, Romeo, Echo, Mary, Golf, Delta, India, X-ray, whiskey.
Okay. So we are jumping in and joining the meeting. And Zach has also joined our meeting. And the way that this works is the teacher can simply clip it to their shirt, or they could wear it around their neck. Can't see with my mask. And then as I walk around the room, the camera actually follows. So the students at home would see this. Now, let's say that we have a student who's being kind of naughty in our class. We are going to disable the following. I'm going to click twice to mute my microphone. And I'm going to go over here and tell Mrs. McGovern that she had better behave. That way it's not being recorded. The camera isn't following me. Maybe if I want to show work on the whiteboard and I want to just go around and have some proximity in my class, the teachers will have all of that control from here. So I just double click to unmute. I turn the following back on. You want to switch back to your meeting, Zach? And then we are back. There we go. So we're back to the point where the swivel will follow me around the room as I instruct students. So we are really, really excited to get this out to all of our teachers tomorrow. We'll be working in groups of 3, training staff over the next 4 days, making sure that they have all the equipment they need and also being available in the schools to offer assistance. So my staff will be in the buildings. We have a lot of our CAB leadership that's going to be helping with this, and I just kind of wanted to give you an update. We're really excited. I think it's going to make it a lot easier. I actually had an email from a teacher who has a student that her job is to turn her music stand as she moves around the room that her iPad's in. So this should solve all of those problems. Do you guys have any questions on the swivels?
Any questions? Mr. Okay, I guess I'm just going to say I'm hearing that teachers are overwhelmed. So I'm glad to hear that there's going to be more of a hands-on kind
Yes.
of help with the beginning of this and getting used to it and that kind of thing, so that their questions are answered in real time as they try to adapt to the new technology.
Yes,
So-
yes.
So thank you for that.
Awesome.
I think-
I'm honestly really excited for that. Our Rockstar teachers are going to be participating in a Train the Trainer from the Swivel Company a week from today. So that gives them a week to get in and play with it and figure out the questions that they're going to have and then be able to take it to that next level. Our real goal is just to make sure our teachers are comfortable and we're there to help. We can answer questions while we're in the building. It doesn't even have to be swivel questions as they're working through classroom setup or how they're going to do this. That's what we're really hoping to do. So.
Thank you for that, because I've received a number of comments about the technology, and I know the intent when we purchased these swivel cameras was to make things easier for the
Yes,
virtual as well as the in-classroom students, and
absolutely.
make it easier for the teachers. So I'm happy to, 4 weeks into the year, I'm glad that we're able to acquire them, and hopefully this will make things easier for our staff.
Yes, that is the goal. That's the end goal for sure. So,
Thank you.
all right. Thank you,
Mr.
guys.
Nicholson?
Sorry. Do y'all need any more iPads or do we?
We're good on iPads, actually. We made sure that all of our teachers that had older ones that we weren't really aware of that they were older, we've got those replaced. I think there's a few left in our staging area that our staff will bring back out to the staff when they work with them in the buildings. But yeah, I think we're really good.
Sweet.
Awesome.
Any other questions from the trustees?
Chairman Jellicoe,
Mrs. McGovern?
if I may add just a couple of things while Stephanie's presenting real quick.
Sure.
One of the common questions that I'm getting about the swivel cameras is how they were purchased and where did those funds come from. So I think that's important that people know that some of the funds came from our federal CARES grant money. And then the other part actually came from our capital projects fund, which is actually slated for infrastructure. Most importantly, the purchase for these swivel cameras did not come from the general fund, where salaries and those kind of things do come from. So our general fund is not taking a hit through the purchase of these cameras whatsoever. And I think the other final thing is what that does, and Steph is totally IT, but as a teacher, you truly have the ability to run your classroom the way that you normally would to teach. And so teachers that are feeling that they're doing double lesson plans for students that are in person in their classroom, and then also those that are home and online, This completely eliminates those kind of things for them. So hopefully our teachers feel a sense of relief and support that is coming for them, and we want them to be set up to be successful as much as we can.
Thank you for those clarifications. Okay, are we to facilities now? Dan?
Chairman Jellicoe, members of the board, Superintendent McGovern. It's actually been a long time since we've done a full facilities update. And what we're going to do is tie in, what I'd like to do is tie in everything that we've done so far this summer, whether it's COVID money, whether it's capital funds, rec mill dollars, just get everything all together and kind of go through and give everybody an idea of where we're at as far as construction on satellite school, where we're at as far as COVID supplies, COVID labor, so that there's a lot of, I think, misinformation out there, and hopefully we can clear it up today. Okay, we'll start with one of the emergency projects that we'll be asking for approval today is the evap coolers that we put onto the junior high school, Rock Springs Junior High. When we first started this, we actually had the elementary schools and the junior high listed as emergency projects. Because of the extremely hot weather starting in August, and then plus coupled with the everybody has to wear a mask, you know, those schools get hot. They're the only schools that we have that do not have air conditioning. The reason why the junior high was addressed and the other ones were not was originally we did go in and try to address them. Every school, you know, that didn't have air conditioning was an emergency and it was a priority. We knew that it is on my 5-year plan to start designing as this year, but because of the heat, because of the COVID, we had to move it up, you know, ahead of a lot of other projects. One of the things that we found going through the plans is, first of all, in order for it to qualify for major maintenance, if you remember, state statute says it has to be repair and replacement of. Otherwise, the district has to pay for addition. Okay, the junior high at one time did have air conditioning on it. And I wasn't here. I don't know why it was removed, but at some point about 10 years ago, maybe a little bit longer than that, it was abandoned. It was disconnected. And when they put a new roof on, I believe in 2009, so even longer than that, they removed the condensing units. So technically it had some sort of cooling at one point in time. So it qualified for me to put emergency, funding as far as with major maintenance money. Now, the other schools, when I originally talked with Scott, he asked me, well, how much do you think it's going to cost? And at the time, we thought to put a cooler onto these 3 schools, probably between $35,000 and $50,000 a piece. But when I started looking into it, along with one of our local contractors, what we found was these schools, when they put in the original system, they don't have any return air ducting. The way the ducting is it's ducted through the attic space. It dumps into a room. It's actually called out on the plans as a projector room in the gyms. But the air itself that you draw in from outside comes from between the ceiling and the roof deck. So what we commonly refer to at home as your attic space, that's where the air comes through. So without any ducting to tie into, it made it almost impossible. One of the things that we looked at was just putting coolers on, but because of the moisture of the coolers, then you have to worry about mold in between those spaces. Then those spaces get hot. So you're trying to cool off, taking cool air through, either a direct or indirect cooler. And then you're actually heating it up with the space, within that attic space. So when we looked into it further, one of the things that we found is the job would have to be engineered. in order to do an engineering project, even if we said, okay, the engineer has to, this is an emergency situation, so we can forego the RFP process, which is about a 3-week process for, 3 to 4 weeks, then we could hire an engineer to look at it and do it. But by the time he gathers the information and gets ready for bid, you're looking at several more weeks, probably 2 months to go out for bid. You have to go out to bid for 2 weeks, but you give people time to get, heck, we're into the winter. So it wasn't that they weren't an emergency, they were. But we hit so many obstacles, and these were physical obstacles that were almost impossible to overcome without tearing the place apart, putting ductwork in. We just couldn't do it during the school year. It just didn't lend itself. So that's why the junior high ended up with the coolers, and they're replacing the systems that used to be there. In fact, these coolers are in the part by the auditorium, the music room, and the gymnasium. They are the same type of indirect cooling system that they have up at the high school. And we had to replace those. If you remember 2 years ago, we came in, we put cooler pads on the outside. We fabricated our own form of a cooler in order to get them by through the hot summer, because they have football practice that come in early. And so we had decided that we would go ahead and take care of that. So we were replacing systems that they had. So it wasn't, I don't want anybody thinking that, well, why was this an emergency and the other ones that didn't have it? They were all emergencies. We all counted them as emergencies. It was just very difficult to move forward with them without getting engineers involved in a huge timely process. Okay, but they are on the 5-year plan. We're going to expedite it so that we can start looking into it now, so that this time next year, going into the spring, we have a plan. But in order to do something at those schools, we're actually going to end up having to cut massive holes in the roof, probably remove the existing equipment rooms, and putting in an indirect system similar to what we have up at the high school. So altogether, well, let me go back, sorry. Then we got the coolers in a typical Wyoming fashion. We got the coolers up just in time for a snowstorm and a week of 30-degree weather. The upside to the 30-degree weather was one of the things that comes up in COVID all the time is you hear people asking for, how come we didn't get the UV lights in? If you go back to the board meeting that we had where the directors were first here and everybody had to address the board and talk about some of the COVID stuff, one of the things that I said was, as long as we have good filtration, we have outside air coming in, those are the 1 and 2, we had time to put in the UV light. In fact, I use a scenario that our weather here is usually good through October, November, December, we would be okay. And having this last week where we were 30 degrees, the only areas that we had, that I know of, we had 2 areas, and that was Desert View and Overland School. In Overland, the reason why that one had a cold school was they're working on the control systems. This board approved that we move forward and put DDC controls on. They've been working on it all summer. They didn't get the pumps turned on to the boilers. Okay, so it was a simple fix. We went down there, turned the pumps on, boilers kicked on, warmed up the school. That's all that was. But the systems that we have are good enough. They will heat the buildings up even at 30-degree weather. Desert View, the issue there was just a bad contactor. So the guys went there, replaced the contactor. And these are things every time we have a startup, you always have glitches starting something up that has been shut down for months. Any questions about the cooler projects that we did over the summer?
Any questions? Okay, please proceed.
Okay. Next, satellite school. Satellite school has been a good project so far. We've had some issues here and there, but really the project is moving along. As you can tell by the pictures, and these pictures are now antiquated. Friday, they did another update. Bob Lower, our structural engineer, was out on the project, and he took more pictures. The pictures are even further along than what these are. And what you see here is this is the D-wing. The D-wing is actually the south side of the building, and this would be the first floor, and as you can see, they're putting the deck up for the second floor. So on this project, this second floor, as we expand, it just flops over to the other side, to the north side of the building, creating that kind of an arrowhead look. Okay, but this would be the first phase, the D area, first floor, second floor. And here you can see is a good shot of the crane setting the red iron. I don't know why they call it red iron anymore. It's almost all gray, so the gray iron. But this project, especially the inside of the building has been progressing really, really fast. They're ready to pour concrete. I think Saturday they came in and they start doing curb and gutter. And I believe that they started putting in the flowing concrete on top of the panning for the second floors. Again, more structural. Lots of block in the building. And unlike our previous project, this building, the mason guys were just unbelievably fantastic. If you notice, even though we had that strong wind, they had the sides. That was first thing that somebody called me up and said, "Hey, is that wall standing?" And I said, "Yeah, it's still there, all of our walls," because they put those walls up. And if any of you that drove by, you saw the giant poles coming out to the anchor to the ground, holding them up. They did a phenomenal job shoring everything up. One of the issues that we had with the red iron was when they were setting the footings got out. The contractor that was marking the footings, they got out 7 inches. So basically the width of a block, instead of doing the outside of the block, they thought that was where the inside of the block was. So we gained 7 inches on the building all the way down. The downside to it is the contractor had to buy red iron because the building actually goes out like a funnel shape. And so as you get further out, they start, "Hey, how come these trusses are too short?" So what they had to do is take the ones that were supposed to be at the end, which were the longer ones, and bring them up, and they ordered 4 more and replaced them. Everything's good to go. Again, this is actually looking down from inside the D wing, looking towards the west. You can see the mountains in the back. So you're almost standing to where you would come in, the main entrance of the building. Okay, and if you see that lower steel structure in the right-hand corner, that's actually where the offices are going to be. If you go out there now, you'll see they actually have the steel studs up. And so the entrance area, where the offices for that building are going to be, they're there now. Today, when I looked at the latest from Friday's observations, yeah, see it says on the bottom of the D, the east end, which is where the office, the lower roof is the office area. That would be where the culinary arts or the serving kitchen will be for this go around. Then upstairs is actually one of the labs. Again, this is inside. This just shows you how panning looks prior to them, what they do. That's your first floor. They compacted the gravel here. Then they put your joister up and your panning. They come in, they pour the concrete. That's your second floor. This is when you're standing on the second floor, again, on the south side, D wing. This is, you're standing on the second floor, south side. You're looking over towards the west. Okay. Any questions about satellite school? Have you heard anything, good, bad? Okay. This project has been a good project so far. It really has. There was a couple things that it gets the same old thing. We make the speech every time we start a project saying, hey, we don't really care how you used to do it, follow specs. We pay engineers and architects a lot of money to develop these books. Please read them and follow them. We have our owner's rep has been a stickler in making sure that they follow them. Today, a real good example, and it's these little things that don't get caught that cost us, a district, money later on. They sent photos back of the sidewalk. Well, they poured a sidewalk and then they cut the sidewalk like a ½ an inch. Well, standard practice is, you cut the sidewalk 1/4 of this thickness of the slab. So if you have a 4-inch slab, you should be cutting it at least 1 inch deep. Okay, so if you're cutting it a ½ inch, what happens then is you start cracking, and those are control joints, and they're meant to, as you crack, especially if you go laterally across the joints, it stops it there. Otherwise, if your control joint is too shallow, it goes underneath the control joint and just continues on. That happened up in Farson and over by the bus loop, and we ended up replacing over 35 feet, 35 by 12 feet wide sidewalk. So that's a huge expense to come back afterwards. It was under warranty by Hogan Construction, but otherwise what happens is if we don't follow the specifications and something like this goes south 5, 6 years later, I have to use major maintenance money to fix it. And there's nothing more irritating than fixing something that is given a 50-year life cycle, and will it last 50 years? Who knows, but it should at least last 25 years. Okay. All right, so I think that's all that I had other than, is that booklet on here? Is it? Yeah. I included a PDF, and what the PDF is, it's a guidance for reopening of schools. Because we've had a lot of misinformation and information floating around there as far as, are our schools safe? I'm telling you, our schools, I have followed CDC guidelines, which they refer to ASHRAE, and also the World Health Organization's guidelines as well. One of the things that we have put in here, there you go. Thank you, Zach. Okay. All of you have a copy of this, right? Okay. When you look down at this list, we have followed this list almost to the letter. And when I say almost to the letter, it's because there's more to this list. There is a startup procedure that is towards the end of this documentation. There are policy or procedural ways to go about checking the HVAC systems. And, I told the folks in this community that we would have safe schools, and I told them that we would have UV lights and we would have MERV 13 filters. Okay. One thing that everyone has to realize too is this is a pandemic, and it is just like I'm here telling everybody we're going to have these things. There's other directors, other places that are telling them the same thing. The demand is unbelievable. Right now, our MERV filters should be here, MERV 13 filters. But if you read any place on these CDC guidelines, one of the things that they'll tell you is filtration, air dilution. Now, even on these guidelines have been changed just in the last 2 weeks. One of the things that they were saying is 100% outside air. That's one of the best things that you can do for a building. But now they're telling us, we're coming up with what we call flushing the buildings. Flushing the buildings means you run the air systems and you flush the building 2 hours prior to. You bring in 100% outside air and you just dump it into the building. Let the building go. If your humidity levels are below 40%, what they would like you to do is cycle your return air every 15 minutes. If it is above 40%, then you can actually open up your return airs and let them mix properly with your outside air coming in, and rely on your MERV 13 filters. Okay, MERV stands for Minimum Efficiency Report Value. Okay, and when you buy a standard filter for your house, a lot of people get the ones that you can see right through. Okay, you put those in your furnace, and that filter really doesn't even hit a MERV rating until it's dirty. Once it's dirty, then it's at its most efficient level because it doesn't let anything pass through. Okay, so in our industry, we don't do that. We don't put filters in that air passes through and wait until they get dirty, because you have coils, whether heating coils or evaporator coils, that you want to protect. So you go with these MERV ratings. And generally speaking, in this district, we use MERV 8 filters. Okay, MERV 8 have a real high minimum efficiency report value. Not as high as 13. As you go higher and higher, obviously the filter gets better until you hit a HEPA filter, which is like 99.9% efficient in the filtration of particles. The problem was, once you get too high up in the efficiency ratings, your blowers become ineffective. It's just like having a dirty air filter. If you have a dirty air filter in your furnace speed actually picks up. It moves faster. The reason it moves faster is because it's relying on the resistance of air. If you remove the resistance of air, the motor spins faster because there's no resistance, and it blows out all of the oil out of the bearings, and the motor burns up. Same thing applies, except in a commercial system, they're belt drives, so it's a little more forgiving, but you'll still run into the fact where you're cutting off the airflow. Okay, and we have to run our systems to what they call a static pressure, and that just has to do with resistance of air between the return and the supply. So MERV 13 is the highest rating that we can use on our systems, And MERV 13 happens to be the one filter on the low end that you can get that will actually intercept viruses. So we're bringing in outside air. With outside air, unless there's something going on outside, you could actually have the MERV 8s in there, but we have MERV, we've ordered MERV 13. When we start getting to the point where it's so cold outside that we have to recirculate air, the MERV 13s are fine, but by then we have ordered the UV lights, and the UV lights will come in. In fact, what I have to do for controls is every time the return air dampers open up and I have air moving, so I have an air sensor switch and an end switch on the return air dampers, that's what energizes the lights. Otherwise, the lights will be on all the time, and I don't need the lights on when I'm bringing in outside air. It's just the return air, that I have to treat with UV lights. Okay, so there's a lot of measures that go on here. And with those UV lights, you just don't go buy them. You have to you have to bring in your square footage of your ducts, your return, how much room do you have to work in return, what's your CFM on those systems. If you put it on the front side, on the return side versus the supply side, then you have to deal with velocity. So it's not just something that you throw in there. One of the things I tried doing is hiring a contractor to come in. And I've got the emails from back in June 7th. No one had anybody that they can come, that they could send to us that could do this. So we took this on our own. All these calculations, all these measurements have been turned in, and the state has finally approved it's a $330-some thousand project to put these UV lights in all the schools. So we're on the road to getting these things. What we'll do is we'll prepare the electrical, we'll prepare where they're going to go, how they're going to mount. As soon as these lights start coming in, then all we have to do is slide them in, plug them in, we're good to go. So the UV lights are coming. The UV lights are going to be put in. They should be in exactly when we talked about them coming in, and we don't need them now. So our schools are safe. We're following ASHRAE and CDC and the World Health Organization's guidelines. And if you scroll through any of these, you'll see some of the biggest things are dilution, okay? It talks about dilution of air, it talks about filtration, it talks about the MERV rating. Everything that I have been telling this board since this whole thing came out, we have followed. We have not deviated off of it, and we are not leaving something out. So I don't know if anybody has any questions. I don't know if it's a pretty lengthy document, if you had time to read it. And the other thing too is if anybody has questions, I've always said, I've been here 6 years now, and I've always said, if you have questions, feel free to send me an email, call me, or come down to my office. So, I mean, we need to work together in this kind of stuff and get through it.
Any questions, comments?
Okay. Moving further on with updates. COVID supplies. As part of the supplies, we've ordered thousands of everything. I know the wipes have become an issue because we've ordered, I think it was 1,200 cases of 500, six tubs per case, 500 wipes per tub. So far, we have not received the entire order. We have given the schools out and asked them to please share classes, if you can. We're going to have the final shipment should be here Thursday. I thought it was going to be Wednesday. In fact, I think I told Mrs. McGovern it was going to be Wednesday, but then we got a phone call from our supplier and said they're not going to be here till Thursday. Once we get that shipment, it should be enough tubs of the 500 count per tub to hand out to everyone. So again, supply and demand. Sanitizing wipes are just tough to come by. The foggers. There's been some discrepancies and misinformation about foggers. We had bought foggers long before COVID was an issue because they are the best way to disinfect. So we have been using foggers. Now the set of foggers that we had, and we had, I think it was one fogger per school because it doesn't take that long to fog a school. They were the first generation. They had some issues. So our folks were still using some of those. We ordered more foggers, some were different brands, and so we gave them what we had as they came in. Then we were short 2 foggers, and so instead of being able to, we had ordered them, we were waiting for 20 more foggers, brand new foggers at like $800 a piece to come in. We went and ordered some, what they call misters. Okay, I think Joe uses misters on his bus, and we gave them to some of the schools. Some of the secretaries didn't like the misters in the school. They said it was leaving stuff too wet. But we have all of the foggers in. I believe as of, well, I think today, I asked Mark, everybody has a fogger. Yes, every school has a fogger. The larger schools have 2. I think the high school may even have 3. So the foggers are here. We have the chemical for the foggers. We also told the people at Nuns is until they tell me. So what we've instructed every custodial who works in the evenings, if your fogger goes out, you're to call the person who's on call. They all have the on-call number. And so the on-call person is just going to come out, give them another fogger that we know works so that that portion of the disinfecting will be completed for the next day. And I know that we had some issues with that. Hopefully that rectifies it. Employees. We were short employees. This is, I mean, custodial work is tough work. And it takes a special person to do that kind of work. And we took COVID money. We knew that we could hire, I think it was 13 people. So we got, and it's for 175 hours. Or 175 days, I'm sorry, 175 days. So at 175 days, that's short of an actual full-time person, but it's full-time while they're here for 175 days. So they get all the vacation time off, they get the holiday time off. And to show you how things work in the custodial world, we got the people from Elwood Services because it's easier to deal with a lot of things. We had a full staff on last week on Wednesday. They finished their training. Of the 13 people that we had, 5 of them said, this isn't for me. And we had, of the 5, actually only 3 said this isn't for me. 1 finished out his day and just never came back, and the other one just never showed up after his training. But as of today, we actually had more people apply than what we needed. That is the first time that I've been here that has happened. So going into the rest of the week, they're in training today, they're being trained tomorrow. They should finish up the week full strength as far as our custodians that are employed through the district, and full strength as far as the custodial staff that we hire for the 175 days. So hopefully after a month, that issue will go away as far as manpower in cleaning the rooms. Anybody have any questions about those items?
Anyone?
Because I know that those were some hot topics. Okay.
Chairman Jellicoe, if I may, just to clarify, when Mr. Celeroli is talking about the 175 days, the board approved the district to use some of the COVID grant funds to support custodial cleaning. And that's what Dan is referring to, is the 175 teacher-student contact days in school.
I forgot to mention that. Yeah, it's coming from the COVID money, not from district general fund. Okay, moving on to some of the other projects. Anybody who hasn't seen, what a great job, Mark. This year, going into this year, it got so crazy. I split up some of the summer details or duties, and Mark Bertillo, I gave him the high school, everything at the high school. Pretty close to a $3 million project between the football field, the scoreboard, football field scoreboard, which were the majority of the funds were from the rec mill. We were allowed to replace the track surface under major maintenance, and it was in very poor condition. So that portion was major maintenance money. So Mark oversaw those 2 projects, and then we already had a project slated because the units that were at the original part of the high school were no longer working. We had holes in the coils. The controls weren't working. Somebody had bypassed the magnetic starters. The only way you can shut the motors on and off without doing a lot of expensive repairs, and quite frankly, it was the original equipment, was by shutting the breakers off. So those projects were actually scheduled, and when we went out to bid, the board approved this way back, I think in February or March. Then COVID kicked in. That just prolonged the delay. It made a huge delay in the delivery of the equipment. Okay, but that project is winding down as well. But that, like I said, that was Mark's first real job with, good results. The football field looks fantastic. The concrete work around it is nice. The scoreboard is nice. The HVAC systems going in there they'll be nice. We went with what they call an indirect evap cooler system. They used to have direct evap cooler systems, and actually long ago they had refrigerated systems. But again, those were disabled and removed at some point in time. So that project is winding down. Transportation. My old buddy Joe there, he called me up one day because we were putting in the generators, as everybody is aware, and when we were running the gas line, the smell of diesel fumes got so bad in the building, we had to evacuate the building. I believe he sent some people home. Some people got sick. Back, who knows when, there used to be an oil disposal tank buried under the ground, 500 gallon oil disposal tank. And at some point in time, somebody removed the tank because they didn't need it anymore. But they didn't mediate the soil around it. And the diesel fumes were so thick. And we have a coal vein there. So if you, we've got a pretty good sized coal vein. And it was just saturated with diesel and oil smell. So we had to notify DEQ. DEQ and I worked with this guy, Patrick Troxel, out of the DEQ out of Cheyenne. I told him what our plan was to remediate it, and we moved forward. We are testing it after we removed an immense amount of dirt, which is in storage until we can, well, you know how that goes. You have to kind of cultivate it and make sure all the fumes before you can even be charged to get rid of it. So we're in the process of doing that. But in the meantime, I had our guy dig 3 different levels. We went down 3 levels. We tested all 3. It turns out that the second level meets DEQ's minimum requirement. The minimum requirement is 22 parts per million when they do their analysis, and that's actually at 700 parts per million. So we know that we can dig and go down to, I think we're probably close to 20 feet in depth. That hole out there is pretty deep, pretty good size. But where we ran into an issue is it seeped back under the footings and the foundation. So we're in the process right now of trying to dig deep enough under the footings without undermining the footings. So I had to have a structural engineer come in case if we do have to remove a lot of dirt, we have to put in what they call Halec piers. I mean, this is going to be an expensive and a time-consuming project in order to mitigate all of this contaminated soil. The last test that we got back, if you look at where the corner of where we stopped digging, and it corners right underneath Joe's office, is at 1,300 parts per million. So we're going to go back about 3 feet, see if we can mitigate, and then test. And if that comes back, good, we lucked out, dodged the bullet, and we can pull on out and start compacting, use flowable fill to shore up where we've dug, where we trenched, and then bring in regular compaction and get moving on that project and close that one up. But that was one of those unexpected ones that you didn't know, you didn't know until it happened.
Dan, where will those funds come from?
Those are major maintenance funds.
Okay.
Yeah, and well, we'll get to the major maintenance funds. I figured I was going to be up here for a little while tonight, so unfortunately for all of us. Well, some of it's good news, some of it's not so good news. Transportation is definitely not so good news because this project, worst case scenario is it runs into a lot of money, because Joe's office is right over where it's contaminated as far as we know. So hope for the best, prepare for the worst. Farson, we went out to bid for landscaping. It came in way over what we had budgeted for. We talked with the contractor, we negotiated, pulled some things out, and I talked to Barb, talked to Ms. McGovern, Scott, and I think we it's still going to be a very nice landscape project when we're all said and done. The big thing was, it would have been nice to use that entire center area for parking, but because of the retention pond, we got to use a little more than half of it. So it still gives everybody spaces. The front portion will be xeriscape. The only difference really is before, if you look at the school on a map, the south portion now will be all sod. We were going to go up a little bit on the east side and the west side, but because every time there's a sidewalk, you have to torpedo under it, the cost for the torpedo got really expensive. So we deleted that, went to xeriscape there. But when it's all done, said and done, they're going to have trees up in the front. They'll have nice landscaping, and it'll look a lot better than the native seed that was put and never really took. So, but then what the upside to that was, then we had a storm. I have been trying to get roofers up there to put some roofs on since last year. This year with the storm, well, actually prior to the storm, we had 3 people go up. We got 0 prices from them. So I went ahead and contacted the folks who did our Stagecoach Elementary. He went up there and he came back putting standing seam metal roofs up there. And depending on the size, they're anywhere from $17,000 a piece to $28,000 a piece for roofs. That puts the whole project, if we did it all at once, he gives us a little bit of break. The total project cost is looking somewhere around $250,000 for roofing on the teacherages. Since then, we have been contacted by Shepherd Construction, which is out of Rollins, and he said that he would like to look at it. I was contacted by one of the homeowners, our tenants up there, and they said that it did blow some of the shingles off. He went ahead and did something with the sheeting, and he feels confident that he's going to be okay for now. As soon as we get the okay for that, if we get a good price or no price, I already have a $250,000 price that we'll have to go with, and that's going to have to be done right away. So that will probably be a post approval once we get that going. Okay, we can't wait much longer. Head Start. That's another I think it's an approval coming before you folks as far as accepting grant money. Where we're at on Head Start is we so far have an architect looking into the design of a renovation of it. One of the things that we have to do is whether we renovate it this year, next year, or whenever, we still have to upgrade the fire systems in that, and that includes the fire sprinkler system and the fire alarm systems. Okay, that is it's not the only building that we have that doesn't ring into dispatch, but it is the only school that we have that is being used that does not ring into dispatch should there be a fire. I think, Nicole, was it when you were there or when Annie was there when we had somebody pull an alarm at Lincoln? Lincoln was a school that also doesn't ring in, and everybody was standing outside waiting for the fire engines, not realizing that it does not ring into dispatch. And so, you're wasting time just sitting out there, waiting for somebody to happen, and you have to actually call 911. So we need to take care of that school, and that's on the agenda for, moving forward on it irregardless. But we're moving along on the design of a remodel renovation of that school. And I think when they're done with that, we'll present that to the board, I'm sure. Walnut water line broke, was it a year and a half ago in the dead of winter? We had it kind of just temporarily fixed. We went out to bid. You folks approved the bid. That was a project that I gave to Terry Bernadas. That's well within the realm of a maintenance supervisor. It's not $1 million project, but it's a good chunk of change, gives them some responsibility, and also gets their feet wet on the construction side. And when I say that I let these guys go, I do oversee them. I do stop them, or I do talk to them, so it's not like they're just out there on their own, mitigating through all these paperwork and stuff. I still have to sign off on everything. I still review everything, but Terry did a good job on it. The job looks really nice. And they're back up and running, and they have new water line coming from the main. And one of the more important things is they have new valve system down there, because that was one that when we did have a break, it was a booger trying to get turned off. And it flooded like nobody's business, down the street. And in the wintertime, it created ice. So now the city asked us if when they did it, if they could put a 3-way valve or down there. And so we now have the right valving systems. It looks good. The cement job came out nice. It's been put to bed. Security. We're still working security systems. You notice we have new security locks on our cab here. We went ahead and replaced the doors because actually the old ones were just shot and they were not secure. That is a Salto system. That's what we're trying to move towards. We had issues at the junior high, and we have an issue at Stagecoach. But those systems are alarm locks. Okay, so what we have to do is we go to the smallest school that has a locking deficiency, and we try to take out those and change that over. A good example is Black Butte. Black Butte, when they put that in, it was alarm lock. We had so much trouble with the interior door at the main office with an alarm lock, we actually replaced it with a Schlage. So those are what we call standalone systems. So to get it back into line, we have a pretty good price for a Salto system. So there's 7 locks up there that we're switching from alarm lock to Salto. Now, once we take those alarm locks, individually, they work just fine, but they don't read through any system. So we have other schools like the junior high, Sage, Black Butte, all of those systems are independent. What that means is when we if someone leaves the district or we hire somebody, we have to go to every single lock with a little handheld device and put that person's badge into it. Okay, the Salto system, we don't have to do that. The Salto system, we do everything from a desk, and if somebody calls up and we have to delete them, we do everything from either your desk computer or your telephone. So what we're going to do is we take the locks that are good from Black Butte. We need one on the back of the junior high, and we're going to put one in the gym. The gym at the Stagecoach currently doesn't have any kind of electronic access. It's keyed. So we're going to put electronic access there. Both those schools have alarm lock systems. They're standalone systems, which means they don't have any gateways, any portals, whatever they call them, to interconnect. So we're taking those locks, putting them at those schools. That should be done by the end of this week. And Black Butte will have a new Salto system that is web-based and easy access for us. Okay. Actually, Ms. McGovern, if you can think of something that I'm leaving out, I think that's, on the COVID. One other thing that I actually wrote a side note on is the negative air machines. I've got a lot of relatives back in New Jersey that are all teachers. And when I talk to them about what we are doing here, they're in total disbelief. I mean, my one cousin he's probably the closest thing to a younger brother that I have. And he's a teacher at an academy. And when I was telling him, about the facial scanners and, different things, he was really impressed. When I told him that we have negative air pressure machines, and my cousin, he actually started out as a chiropractor and had his own practice, and then he just didn't like it, and he wanted to get into teaching. His older sisters, he got 2 older sisters, they were both teachers, and that's the gig that he wanted to get into. And so he understands the importance of a negative pressure machine, as I think now everybody is, especially with the COVID. And between pressurization of our buildings, what that is if you have somebody who is sick, we put them in a nurse's room. If that building, and a lot of our buildings, the newer buildings that have windows on them, are pressurized. So since we're bringing in 100% outside air, it's easy to pressurize. Simply increase the input and decrease the exhaust, or increase the exhaust. One way or the other, you bring more air in than what your building normally takes. So when you pressurize the building and you open up windows, the air is just like water. It'll take the path of easiest resistance. So if you're in a nurse's office and you have somebody there who's sick, you simply open up your window, and they know which schools are that way. I've met with Kim. I've actually met with all of the nursing staff, and we talked about it. And so those schools are in good shape. The other schools that we had were, some schools don't have windows that open. Just depends on the design. Some architects believe that they're good design without opening windows. Some believe that they're better to open. We had some schools that didn't have windows, or where they chose to put that sick room, had no access to a window. So we ordered negative air pressure machines. We have 7 of them in this district. I use negative air pressure machines 2 instances. One, when we have mold. If we take mold samples and they send it down and it's anything more than a typical Aspergillus type mold, if it's something from sewer, you certainly don't want it to be left as, the regular mold that you see in your showers, not really that big a deal, but stuff that comes from sewer water is a big deal. We go in there and we remediate the room just as though it was contaminated with asbestos. We treat it no different. When you look at the protocol for mold isolation and asbestos, there's such small differences that we just do it all the same. So we use our negative air pressure machines, and we have 2,000 CFM pressure machines. We use them for both those instances, for mold and for asbestos, to keep negative pressure in the room so it doesn't contaminate any place else. And now we have 5 more negative pressure machines that are actually stackable. And we use those in those rooms to clear the room and create a negative pressure so that if you have a student in a room, you don't have to worry about airflow coming out of the room. The airflow is going into the room. So that was kind of nice to have the opportunity to purchase that. And I would venture to say that other than the hospital, I don't think anybody else in town has a negative pressure machine, negative pressure room, or the ability to create one that fast. So I know that the nurses have been using it. I have gone through almost every building, may not have been to the nurses, sick rooms to check them out, but I have been going to all the buildings to check for airflows. One of the other things too that I want to bring up is we had a teacher recently call a principal and say, I know for a fact that we don't have any fresh air coming into this building. Okay, I got the message. I just want to say a couple things about that. I really did appreciate us being told that, because most of our schools are on graphics. So I pulled up the graphic. I didn't argue. I just, okay, if you're sure you're not getting outside air, I wonder how, but pull it up, and sure as heck, because of when we had the storm, we must have had a power blip. When we have a power blip, things revert back to their default. Okay, so she was right. And it took me seconds. Get on the computer and open the dampers the way they need to be. The only thing that I would ask for the teachers is work with me. Call me and tell me. This isn't a case where I got you. You told me this and now it's not that. I don't know it if you don't tell me. And if you have a method of deciphering whether you're getting fresh air in your room or not, by all means, share it. Because this is something that we need to know. This is, most people don't think, a lot of people, they take it one way or the other. But if you even looked at this pandemic as this is a practice of how society pulls together, we need to do a little bit better job of pulling together instead of tearing people apart. This isn't about, I got you. This is, hey, Dan, I know because I did this procedure, I would have loved to know that, and that would have been taken care of that morning instead of going through the principal. I don't mind that they go through a principal. That's fine if that's their protocol. But I think that, we need to be sharing information. We need to get out of this together and not be so knuckleheaded and fight each other. That's my biggest frustration day to day, is these gotchas instead of, hey, I can help you. Other than that, I'm good.
Any questions, comments? Mr. Mickelson?
I just said 2. 1, thank you for saving the pine tree. I was really excited. My girls and I walk by East Side every day, and after the storm, there was a big aspen that was not salvageable, right? Because busted. And then a pine tree, and I was like, oh, that's terrible. And then walking home, poof, it was back upright and all tied down, and it was really slick. So I appreciate that. And then the other comment that I have, everyone is super stressed, right? Teachers are stressed, families are stressed, y'all are stressed, I would hope. I'm stressed. I didn't think I'd be living the dream of being on a school board in 1985, but here I am. living through, financial peril, really. And I absolutely would second your comment that we really have to do a good job of pulling together to get through, and things are going to be hard, and people are going to lash out because they're stressed and worried, and we've got to help keep the focus on getting through the year in a way that takes care of our people and our students. And we take care of our students by taking care of our people, and the lengths that this district has gone to take care of them really are greater than anywhere that I'm aware of. I mean, I don't think you could be in a safer building or district as a teacher or a student than you can be in Rock Springs. Not perfect, right? But improving and much better than anyone else has done. So thank you.
And Madam Chair, Max, thank you, and I agree with you. One of the other things too that I didn't even mention until Max said about budgets, beginning of the year, which very few people know, is for some reason WD had a glitch in their computer, and we were short our first payment, which now we get quarterly. We were short by over $200,000. So that was something that we have to deal with, as well. And then we got a letter from the governor that I'm sure you're aware of, saying that, which, I think I've preached enough to this board that someday they're going to start cutting our major maintenance. And they're basically saying that if the money doesn't come in, major maintenance payments may or may not finish out the year. So, I mean, we're doing an awful lot with very little. And, I agree, everybody gets a little bit stressed out, and now's the time where, for me in my department, pick up the phone, give me a call if you have a concern, whether it's a board member, whether it's a custodian. If it's a teacher, certainly give me a call, let me know. We need to work together and figure a way out, because just sitting here, just wasting time isn't helping anybody. So if anybody has any other questions and they can't think of them tonight, email me, text me, call me, or stop by.
I would just like to echo Max's comments and thank you and your staff for everything that you've done. I too have checked with other places around and realized how fortunate we are to have staff that is working for the safety of everyone involved. And that is our top priority, and I will reiterate that over and over again. That is our top priority, to make sure our students and staff are safe, and that they go home safe to their to their families at night. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Thank you. Okay, we'll move on in the agenda to item number 4, which is the communications and correspondence or public comment. If a member of the public initiates specific complaints or charges against an employee, in order to protect the employee's rights to privacy and due process, the board will only hear those complaints or charges in closed session. The board encourages concerned individuals to file complaints using the appropriate district complaint procedure and appropriate forms, which can be obtained from the district's website. As per policies B, D, D, H, and KD, please limit your comments to the board to one time. And we do have some public comment tonight. So I'll start off with Harold Bork, who is a parent. What is the threshold to remove mask requirements in the schools? Currently, our county has had over a 234-day period of tracking, 316 cases, 2 deaths. Our population is 42,343 residents. Let's do the 4th grade math. The superintendent has many years and is highly qualified to explain to the board members. 100% multiplied by 316 case, then divided by the population of 42,343 residents will give you cases per capita, which is expressed as a percent of the population. 0.75%, which is less than 1% of the population, will be a case. That is way better than the state average and even much better than the national average. We thank everyone who has participated in making these numbers this low. 0.0047% deaths per capita if you do the same calculation for deaths instead of cases to get deaths per capita. That is less than 1/100th of 1%. Remarkable. We are among the lowest numbers in the whole nation. We have about 100 beds at Sweetwater Memorial Hospital, and 58 of those beds, according to the American Hospital Directory, are staffed. Our hospital and ability to care for COVID-19 patients have not once been threatened to exceed their capabilities during these 234 days of this crisis. The recovery rates are remarkable, currently at 299 recoveries, which is a 94.6% recovery rate. Additionally, our hospital here has tested over 6,500 samples, 278 positives, and 6,573 negatives. That is 4.2% positive tests, and the last 7-day average was 2.6%. Those are very remarkable numbers and indicates that Sweetwater County is not in an epidemic situation. These are all metrics that drive policymaking and should be adhered to, which the county commissioners, state governor, and the federal government should all be adhering to. But the goalpost seems to be ever changing, and I know that this district is doing their best to understand and to bend with the changing winds. We all want to keep our kids safe, and the district especially have a vested interest in providing a safe environment for them as well. Let's go back to the initial question. What is the threshold and the metric we will use as a district to decide when it is safe to remove the masking requirements that are in place? Recommendations are not mandates or health orders. They are recommendations, and we use them situationally, not as a blanket mandate or order. Homemade masks have not been proven to be effective in preventing the spread of the virus, and this has to do with many factors, such as quality of the construction, quality and properties of the fabrics chosen, and no guarantee that they are worn properly, cared for properly, etc. 1, certified masks, which refer to medical masks that meet government certification standards. That is, in the U.S., the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, CDC, National Institute for Occupational Safety and Health, NOISH, certifies medical masks such as N95 respirators. 2, medical masks that are not certified but subject to Food and Drug Administration, FDA jurisdiction, as a regulated medical device. That is, loose-fitting disposable medical masks. And 3, homemade masks whose quality cannot be guaranteed. Are basing the policies of the school district on masks that cannot guarantee? Another question has to do with being able to provide FAPE, F-A-P-E, in accordance with IDEA, Section 504, and general education law. Our school district funding from federal and state sources can be affected if we inadvertently exclude children that do not wear masks for any reason from the classroom environment. In the school district policies, I believe in Chapter 41, it allows the district to provide alternatives, such online instruction to those that feel more comfortable not to have their children in the classroom. That is fine for those that can do this, but it does not address those who want their children to be in a in-classroom environment and not have to wear a mask. What is the district going to do if a parent or a group of parents decide to challenge this legally? Losing students and funding from this has made a significant impact on the school's budget, in addition to the upgrades, technology, and accommodations that have already been made. Lawsuits due to inadvertent violations of FAPE and IDEA are a serious matter, and our elected school board members need to protect the taxpayers' investment into the school district. We want to make sure that our children have their best interests taken into consideration, which is afforded by federal and state law. We do recognize that the United States Departments of Education and the Wyoming Department of Education has deferred the authority of these decisions to be made at the local district levels, and that is why we are bringing these concerns and questions to the school board. My last question is more directed to Mrs. McGovern. Will the district generate a COVID-19 information page like the Sweetwater Memorial Hospital to keep parents abreast of the number of students, faculty, and visitors that have been sent home from the results of the temperature kiosks reading? We do not need personal information, just a count. It is not a diagnosis test or COVID-19, but would be good information to know. There are many folks that would like to track the data for educational, scientific, and research potential, or make it available upon a request. It is a tool that can detect fevers, and this is great not only for COVID-19, but other illnesses as well. If the data is being tracked, monitored, It can show trends over time and over the years if they are kept. Bravo for getting these. The next comment is from Larissa Appel, who is a staff and parent. Hello.
Mrs. Jellicoe,
Yes.
did you want me to answer the
Sure.
question from Mr. George?
Sure.
The question that he had on here was if we could have a district page for that. Unfortunately, we can't. Account like that is confidential. It could be for various reasons that are unrelated to COVID, that a student might have a fever or a staff member. However, but our health orders are governed by a state statute, and it gives that authority to our state health officer. That's where all these medical health orders come into play. We follow those. The district is compliant with those, but those are governed under Dr. Harris and her authority by state law. As far as the Americans with Disabilities Act, they require the district, before the kiosk came in, we did extensive research on those. And the district is required to store any of these in a medical folder that are kept separate from personnel folders. So the employer must maintain confidentiality for these. But to answer his question, we're not able to release that as public information.
Okay, and I would, thank you very much. And I would add too, we checked to see, we have not seen the governor's orders updated. The current order goes through September 15th, which of course is tomorrow. So we anticipate that there will be some additional information coming forward in the next day. Anything else that you would like to add?
No, I just want to tell him thank you for his comment and for his question.
Okay, thank you. Okay, the second comment is Larissa Appel, who is a staff and parent. Hello, as a parent and a staff member, I am extremely concerned about the current state of our schools and staff. I have tried to go through the proper channels and chains of command, but I do not feel our message is being passed on. The response is usually, oh, well, we just have to do it, or I don't believe that is true. Our leaders at the CAB and you as school board members should be taking our feedback and making changes that help us on the front lines do our jobs, not just wipe our concerns under the rug. With that in mind, I hope you will take these concerns to heart. My first concern is technology. One, as staff, we have received little to no instruction on how to use all these new technologies. We are sent videos and told to watch them in our free time. What free time? Everyone is so overwhelmed with everything being required of us. There has been practically no in-person training, which is what we need, which is what is needed for these complex programs. Also, during class time, teachers cannot teach because they spend half the class period dealing with tech issues, which they are not properly trained. This was very evident when my son had to stay home on quarantine. They are expecting a 6-year-old to know how to log onto Google, and it was clear the teachers didn't know enough to be able to help confused parents, which isn't their fault either, but a frustrating situation for everyone. And our IT people are so overwhelmed we cannot get their help because they are off dealing with other issues. I sent a help desk ticket in for a malfunctioning computer, which I cannot teach without, and it took over a week to get a response, which is not the IT people's fault because they are responsible for helping almost 1,000 people each. I am concerned we are spending a ton of money on devices that aren't worth the cost. The students constantly complain the temperature readers don't work. And now that everyone has learned how to run Google Meets, why do we need swivel cameras? That money could go to other necessary areas. For many years, the district has purchased expensive equipment like the Promethean boards, and because no one gets proper training, they are not used. Just spend money down the drain. Teachers never seem to be included in those decisions, and they are the best people to tell you what will work and what won't. Also, we need to spend our money carefully with the impending budget cuts, and our building still needs so much attention. I cannot teach effectively when it continues to rain through my ceiling and when it goes from 85 degrees in my classroom to 50 degrees the next day. 3, in-person and virtual learning is not working. It has been extremely stressful to do both at the same time. It is nearly impossible for teachers to handle each group's different needs at the same time. Also, the district promised students must choose one or the other, and now students are allowed to do whatever they want. In class, students are choosing to stay home when they feel like it, and their parents don't always know because they are marked remote present. Also, students are moving to other states and doing school from there without our knowledge, and the state legislature could potentially nail us for that. If it was split, some teachers deal with remote learners, others deal with in-person students, we could put our full attention to those kids, but being split, we can only give so much. In closing, I have never seen lower morale in the staff than now. Most people are on the verge of breakdowns. This is not sustainable for our staff. We have been thrown too much at once with no time to process or learn how to do what is being asked, and nothing has been taken off our plates to compensate. Something has to give. Thank you. Okay, the next one is Erin Christensen, who is a parent. The majority of parents don't want a school mask mandate for children in school or for parents attending school functions. The data does not back a need for masks. Actually, the data shows what an overblown mess COVID reactions have been. Our kids are more at risk of CO2 inhalation poisoning than they are of a political virus. The only thing these kids are actually learning is to live in fear. As one study done online by Sweetwater Now reflected, 60% of the community is in support of no masks anywhere. Only 40% were in favor of masks, and that was weeks ago. I am sure the majority has grown immensely in favor of no masks since then. Masks will not stop a virus anyway. I can pull up study after study in support of this fact. Let's quit playing on the pandemic hoax just to receive CARES Act monies. Right now, the entire country needs to focus on our freedoms and constitutional rights, rather than bowing to the out-of-control mob. This has never been about a virus. I suggest to the board, please listen to the majority, even if the majority isn't as outspoken as the mob. It will be the majority voting to save our constitutional rights, both now and in the future, when votes will be taken for the next school board. I know how myself and many others will be voting, depending on what is decided today. Thank you for listening to a very frustrated parent. The next one is Brianna Jackman, who is a staff member. As a teacher, I understand that the district's main concern is the students. Through our staff, we provide for each and every student's needs so that they may thrive. What happens when Maslow's hierarchy of needs isn't being met for the staff, though? How can they provide for others when they have psychological and safety needs not being met in their working environment? This year, your staff has been tested with the exact question. In the past, it has been hard for teachers to make sure they have eaten enough or had enough water due to the short turnaround times to ensure students are being monitored constantly. This problem has been exacerbated by shortened lunches, added daily duties, and lost planning time. Add on top of this the questionable safety measures that were sold as promises to staff to keep them healthy during a pandemic. Teachers are sanitizing their own rooms without proper equipment or chemicals due to an overworked and understaffed custodial staff that also doesn't have the proper equipment promised, like foggers. Teachers are working in classrooms that have drastic temperatures from 62 degrees or lower to 90 degrees or higher, all because the UV sanitation systems promised for the ventilation systems were not installed, and we must use outside air. Add on top of this the intense workloads that come from teachers needing to be both with the students in person and with the students online at the exact same time, along with needing to create all materials online for student use on platforms they didn't receive adequate training on before school started. This has caused many teachers to work harder than ever on non-contract hours, away from their families, and things that provide them stress relief, not because they have opted to, but because it is a necessity that is expected of them to make it all work. This has led to widespread teacher burnout that has left many contemplating retiring or leaving the district at the end of their contracts, not because they don't love the students, but because they cannot survive working in these conditions for much longer. So what can be done by the board to help the district meet the needs of staff in order to help them provide for themselves and others? Look into the safety measures that weren't taken. Are the schools currently safe for students and staff to be in? Look into the reality of the workloads that have been placed on your staff's shoulders. Are they carrying someone else's burden? Are there ways to postpone mandates to next year? Are teachers doing their administrator jobs, work of discipline because the principals have too much on their plates? Please help us so that we may help our students learn and thrive for our community. Crystal Michi, who is a parent. Thank you, Sweetwater School District Number 1 School Board, for listening to the community's concerns. I understand that COVID is here and our schools must adjust to keep our kiddos safe. With that, I'm asking the district to reevaluate the Smart School reentry policies. Our district has been in session for 4 weeks without one case of COVID. That's awesome. Good work, teachers and students. Because of that amazing work, I am asking that our kiddos be allowed to remove their masks if they feel safe while sitting at their desks, recess, lunch, and PE. I understand that masks will not be eliminated until our governor gives the green light. However, I feel that with the sanitizing and hand washing in place, the kiddos who want to remove their masks during these times be allowed to. I fully support kiddos wearing masks while up from their desks and in the halls while the governor has the mask mandate in place. Second, lunch environment. I have sent emails to everyone in regards to this situation. We need to get our kiddos off the floor while they eat lunch. I don't agree with lunches outside on the ground or at their desks with a face shield on either. Our kiddos deserve better. Our district needs to provide a sanitary eating environment for the schools that are overcrowded or do not have enough tables available. I spoke with our school principal and he suggested 6-foot lightweight tables. He said there are chairs stored at Lincoln we could use if they are still there. Our school could set them up in the gym and accommodate the kiddos. Excuse me. He also said the district suggested desk-type trays. Desk-type trays will provide no back support for our kiddos, and the kids are still on the unsanitary floor or ground. I feel that would be a waste of school dollars. Now that school has been in session, we know where the changes to the schools, and especially those that are overcrowded, need to be made. Let's take action and make these changes. I know we are all working toward the same goal, a safe environment for our teachers and kiddos. With support from the parents and the district, we can make this happen. Thank you. Serena Copland, parent. Dear Sweetwater County School District Number 1 board members, it has been brought to my attention that all Sweetwater County School District Number 1 schools are not consistent with mask policies. For example, one school mandates that if a face shield is being worn, so does a cloth mask. Another school allows either a cloth mask or a face shield. Another school will only allow a face shield with a doctor's note. There is not consistency and is very confusing for parents, like myself, that have children in different levels of schools in the district. What is the correct policy? How can we get these schools on the same page? Our superintendent, Kelly McGovern, put a video together before school started. In this video, she stated that each student would be provided with 2 cloth masks and a face shield. She also stated that the student could choose which they would prefer to wear. Ms. McGovern also stated that students could bring face coverings from home as long as they were school appropriate. Is the choice still allowed, or like some schools have mandated, does the student need a doctor's note to wear a face shield? What is the meaning of school appropriate when it comes to face coverings? Why are the face coverings that come from the chin up not being allowed? Can a break from the masks be allowed, at least during PE and recess? When our children are in the school's care, we ask that they be in a safe environment. Students from the 5th grade to seniors change classes. Are the desks being cleaned in between each class? Are students being given the opportunity to wash their hands with soap and water? Or is sanitizer the only solution they are using? Eating lunch on the floor is not sanitary. We don't know where all the students' shoes have walked, and then to make others eat there is not humane. I would never make my kids eat on the floor, nor would I ask them to. Let's find a solution to get the kids off of the floor, off of the ground, and do better by our children. Last year, we were worried about students playing on playgrounds with gophers present due to the causing illness. Now we are asking the students to eat on the ground. Thank you for listening to my concerns. Is there anything there that you want to address
We do. We have a couple of comments
afterwards?
if you
Yeah,
wanted
okay,
to.
Okay. The next one is Mark Cholak, who is a teacher, parent, and an SEA representative. As a representative of SEA at Rock Springs High School, I feel compelled to make a statement tonight about conditions at the high school. It is my observation, based on reports from other teachers and personal experience, that working conditions at Rock Springs High School are very difficult this year. The environment in the school this year is one where the mental and physical health of staff and students could deteriorate rather dramatically, and in some cases already has. Teachers feel overwhelmed with the new requirements put upon them this year. These are over and above the stress already being increased by the COVID-19 outbreak. Many teachers were more than a little concerned about returning to school this year, but almost all have stepped up for kids and done the best that we can do. This year, we have been required to adopt the Canvas platform for all of our lessons. Many of us have been using Google Classroom for many years and have grown quite comfortable with it. Learning the new Canvas platform has not been an easy task for many teachers. It is a much more complicated platform than Google Classroom was and requires many more steps to complete simple tasks. This has cost teachers valuable time in trying to figure out this platform when the old system worked quite smoothly for what we needed to do. It seems as if there are multiple ways to complete even the simplest tasks, so it is difficult to ask other teachers for help because there is no standardized approach or procedure. Another issue has been the adoption of another program, Planbook. This is lesson planning software that is intended to be used so a substitute teacher could supposedly teach our class if we need to miss a day. The program is easier to use than Canvas, but still is time-consuming. It has become the way teachers spend Sunday nights around the district. Some of the issues are the fact that this tool is not as useful as the district may hope. For example, there is not a substitute in the district that I would feel comfortable with teaching a lesson. Few substitutes have the content background to actually teach a lesson. We have many very good substitutes in the district who are excellent at certain parts of the teaching experience, but they are not teachers. Planbook seems to be a time filler. Between Canvas and Planbook, many teachers have been experiencing a great deal of anxiety. I have spoken to Mrs. Fletcher about these issues, and while some relief has come by way of loosening deadlines for implementation, these are still items that are hanging over our heads because full implementation is bound to come sooner or later. In the meantime, we still need to accomplish the everyday tasks of planning lessons, teaching classes, and grading work. No part of the job has gone away. It has just expanded. Most teachers agree that the training offered for these implementations has been quite lacking. We have been offered video training, which has not been adequate to address all the needs. There is no way to ask the trainer how to do something. Rewinding the video does not always yield the desired results. There was a Google Meet presented by a consultant, but his presentation seemed a little more advanced for some new users. We still are not done implementing new technology, though. We have been asked to teach Snap and Read, a text-to-audio program, to all of our students. Next, we have the swivel cameras to figure out. We feel our plates are already overflowing and there is no more room to stack much more on. I have discussed these issues in my building with Mrs. Fletcher and some of the assistant principals. She has offered to allow us to work out our technical issues during PLC time. That may work, but most departments are using that time for its intended purpose, common lesson planning. We fear falling behind what is our primary job, teaching and nurturing students. While she has expressed her sincere appreciation and sympathy for our situation, we are all feeling a huge amount of stress and anxiety. Climate control continues to be a factor affecting learning at Rock Springs High School. I know that the district has installed some kind of system that will hopefully make a difference in the future. What was noticed by many teachers this year after the installation was that the library and some of the science rooms became very cold. It did not radiate out to the classrooms. In my room, the temperature was in the high 70s to low 80s on a consistent level. Our classrooms are small with 28 people inside, each with their own computer. It heats up very quickly. There are some concerns about some of the safety equipment, for example. Many teachers have noticed that the facial scanners at the doors seem to give the same reading every day. I personally have been 97.3 every day this year. Other teachers report similar issues, with multiple people having the same temperature readings at the same machines. This seems highly unlikely for everyone would have the same readings at the same machine. My intention is not to simply point fingers, but I feel the board needs to hear what many teachers are feeling this year. We knew this was going to be a tough year, but it's turning out to be much harder than anticipated and much different than we were expecting. We want to be successful this year. We want students to be successful this year, and we want the district to be able to move ahead this year. We just don't want it to be at the price of our own health and welfare. Mark Cholak, Social Studies teacher, STA Association representative, district parent, stakeholders, Rock Springs High School. The final comment is from C. Paulding, who is a parent. I'd like to start off with a rave. The horrible storm displaced us for a few days, and we were forced to stay in a motel, all while we had no access to our vehicles because of a fallen tree. My son's teacher, Westbrook, and Principal Daniel went above and beyond getting his schoolwork to them. His teacher quickly put together his work, and the principal hand-delivered it to the hotel. Kudos to them for making sure my kiddo didn't miss out. My rant. What plans are in place to provide more seating in cafeterias? Currently, students eat outside, weather permitting, on the ground at their desk with a face shield on, or on the floor in the gym to allow social distancing. While I appreciate all the precautions that have been put in place to keep our kids safe and healthy, making them sit on the floor is just unacceptable. Thank you for your time. Okay, and then I will turn it over to Mrs. Bolton.
Sorry, I'm taking off my mask to talk. I'm 6 foot distance, I promise. Sorry, Zach. I'm hoping to be able to address a few of these concerns, and if I miss some, I know Ms. McGovern will be able to fill in for them. But Chair Jellicoe, Superintendent McGovern, and members of the board, I'd like to talk to some of the concerns that have been coming forth and clarify a few points. Concerns have come forth on masks, and the guidance is clear for the K-12 schools to be operating. It was stated in one of the comments that the state has deferred these decisions to local school boards, and that is not accurate. The schools are required to follow the statewide orders given. The statewide orders currently state, students, teachers, and school staff shall wear face coverings both indoors and outdoors where 6 feet of separation between individuals cannot be maintained. If a mask is unable to be worn for a medical reason, recess, or PE due to increased heart rate and heavier breathing, or if there are other circumstances with IEPs, 504s, we have provided shields. And then Casey Arnoldi, our special education director, has gone above and beyond that to provide a plethora of options for a lot of our IEP kiddos. Now, shields do not replace masks, but they are a face covering, and that is better than nothing in consulting with many medical professionals. Masks are the #1 preference, and that is to be worn first in the school and events if possible. But if it's not an option, or I'm sorry, it is not an option to come to school in person and not have either a mask or a shield. It has been brought forth that there's been petitions being signed, and if enough signatures are signed, they won't wear masks or shields coming to school. And I just want to reiterate the schools do not have an option. This is in, and I know the board knows this, but for the public, K-12 schools have statewide orders that we have to follow, and those are the orders that we're following. We've been very, very clear on the expectations and rules. Individuals wanting to attend events know that what the requirements are, whether they agree with them or not. I'm happy to report that 98% of the people attending the events have been very respectful and they comply. Even when they don't agree, most comments are, we'll do what it takes to keep the events going and give our kids the opportunity. Sure, there are individuals choosing not to follow the rules, and every time an administrator leaves or turns around, they either remove the mask or pull it down. If individuals choose to come to events and do not comply with the rules, they will be asked to leave. At no time should any administrator have to ask someone to follow the rules that were clear before entering the event. When administrators are enforcing the rules, this does not make them the bad guys. It means they're doing exactly what we've been tasked to do by the state. We're doing anything and everything we can to keep the schools open, activities and sports going, and give whatever opportunities we can to the students. If people do not want to comply with the rules and expectations, we're asking, please do not come to the event. It does not matter if you agree or disagree with the rules. This is what we have been given for orders to follow through with, and as unpopular as it is, we will continue to do so. Let me get into some more detail. I want to be clear that these decisions were never made on opinions, beliefs, or political stances. I've said that from the beginning and will continue to reiterate that. It is not to show any disrespect when I state it does not matter what our opinion or belief is. It does not matter what political stance any of us have. It does not matter if one agrees or disagrees. These decisions cannot be made off that, nor will they be. We have approximately 6,500 staff and students that we are responsible for, and we are following the guidance and taking every precaution we can to keep staff and students safe. Yes, I stated staff and students. It was never just about keeping the students safe. There have been hundreds of hours spent on preparing for something that continues to be unknown and something that is changing all the time. I'm sorry, I do need to go back to the events real quick. For the events, we are able to have 250 spectators inside or 1,000 spectators for outdoor events. The same rules apply for social distancing. If it can't be maintained, a mask must be worn. Those are in the orders. In order to accommodate the maximum number of spectators, we are unable to guarantee 6 feet social distancing inside or in our outdoor stadium. Because of this, and it's impossible for us to make sure that individuals are strictly with their families, and since we can't guarantee the 6 feet distance, that's why masks are being asked to be worn properly at all times. I just wanted to clarify that. There have been hundreds of hours spent on preparing for something that continues to be unknown and something that is changing all the time. We have continually asked for feedback, and during this summer, we had expertise in many areas from around the community and representation for the entire district. We came up with the best possible plan we could with the state orders given and the options we have. When people have come forth with concerns, nothing has been swept under the rug. But if there are not suggestions or solutions that we're able to implement, we cannot just stop moving forward or stop following the mandates currently in place. We continue to problem solve, and we try to adapt to every challenge that arises with the size of our buildings and the capacity within. This year's tough, there's no doubt. It is testing all of us. There are demands on us unlike any time before. Our days have never been longer, and yes, they were long before this. We are all doing the best we can with what we have. There is not a decision being made to put the work or burden on another's back. We are all doing our part and pulling our weight. No matter the position one holds or the department, it's been endless hours. This will not last forever, but while it does, we have to do whatever we are able to keep schools going and keep everyone safe. Working long hours and being pulled from our families is not falling on deaf ears. We feel this, and we are doing this right alongside you. We will continue to do what we can to adjust and to lift the burden wherever we can. Remember, we were pushed into emergency learning last year, not online learning. Our staff were forced to start teaching remotely as best they could. We all learned a lot from that, and based off of the feedback from our families and parents and staff, there were changes implemented this year, as at any moment, we might be required to go 100% back online temporarily, and we have to be ready for that. And it has to look different than last year. All staff are required to learn to teach live and recording lessons to accommodate our learners. This cannot be isolated to some staff, as again, at any moment, all staff may be forced online, or a student in their class has to log on only for 2 weeks because they're in quarantine. If everyone does not learn this technology and how to teach online, we will not be in any better of a spot if we're forced online than we were last spring. I'd like to explain Planbook in a little more clarity for the board. Planning has always been an expectation of the district, as anyone knows that if you are not prepared, then quality teaching will not occur. As a principal, this is the area I analyzed in depth weekly. I gave feedback, and it was deemed that important. That is typically where a lot of teachers' extra time is spent, the weekends, nights. There were a variety of ways teachers planned, but one of the most common ways across the district was actually utilizing planbook.com. It was most commonly used at K-6, but the junior high actually had quite a few teachers that utilized it, and the high school had some. It is an online platform that offers a multitude of opportunities, and when used in its full capacity, can assist in preparing and saving time for teachers. As the principal at Lincoln, I saw this save my teachers a lot of time, and their plans were extremely in-depth and executed at very high levels. The most amazing part, they shared their plans. They planned as a PLC after analyzing data, and they shared and divided out plans and then, shared them together. One would do the reading units for the week with in-depth PowerPoints and flip charts, links to online presentations. If there were video clips, they were uploaded into it. I'd walk into a classroom and go to another classroom in a grade level, and although teaching didn't look identical, as they all put their own art into it, they were paced the same, and the lessons were all very high level. Even better, the plans didn't delete. They were able to take plans from previous years, and instead of starting from scratch, they were able to revise and update or do whatever they needed to them for this year's plans and to meet students' needs. Teachers can create templates for items that repeat frequently, which also saves tons of time. I would encourage teachers who didn't have the opportunity to participate on the online demonstration to watch the recorded video of the sessions and also log into the live sessions where there were answers, question and answer sessions. It really was helpful. Planbook wasn't just for substitutes, but when a substitute was needed and a teacher was sick, they didn't have to come in at 3 a.m. or make plans just to give worksheets for the day. The subs were able to pull up the plans and typically had charts to walk them through the lessons. I see this happening in schools all the time when we walk through. It is nice to have the Google Meets and documents already loaded now for the subs as they enter. This is also best for administrators to have access to plans at all times. I know anything new does take more time, but the end goal is that it will start saving our teachers time and help them be more efficient. I would like to thank all the rock stars who are proficient and beyond with many of the online components and programs. They have spent a lot of time to assist in supporting all of our teachers. They have put quick video trainings together and offered live sessions to help. Yes, these are all things having to be done, a lot of it on our own time. A lot has changed. We have to change. And in order to do that, there are things having to be done on our own time to learn. If this were a situation we could have implemented differently and had control over, trust me, we would have. We do not have a choice, and we don't have a choice not to change. Sure, it's uncomfortable. It's not perfect. It's uneasy. but we have to do it. And I know that's not the answer people like to hear, but we do. We will continue to offer as much support as we can, and we will adjust as much as we can to continue to help everyone, whatever it takes. The reality is there are some temporary circumstances we can't change right now, but it won't be like this forever. Things aren't perfect. We are adapting and we are adjusting. We will continue to persevere and move forward because the latter choice isn't an option. That's not what's best for staff or students. Thank you to everyone and all the hours, heart, and hard work you are putting forth to make this year successful. We do appreciate it, and it's not going unnoticed. Another concern I'd like to address is that there have been many rumors that there have been multiple staff and students that have tested positive with COVID. I'm happy to announce that we have just finished 4 weeks of school successfully with 0 confirmed cases with any students or staff. Please know if there are any positive cases, the district has a plan for appropriate communication while honoring all confidentiality. We would like to thank Public Health, Dr. Stations, and our medical community for their continued partnership and support. They have not had easy jobs, and they have been over backwards to be available and provide opportunities for the school district. It has definitely taken an entire team to accomplish this so far. Last, this is a little off subject, but I would like to publicly announce that Ellen Wells is retiring. Her last day is this Friday. She has been in the district for many years, held multiple roles, and has been an asset and help to so many people in our district. I'd like to publicly thank her for all of her years of service and let her know she will be greatly missed. Thank you, Ellen, for everything you have done, and we wish you well.
Anything to add?
Yes,
Okay, Mrs. McGovern?
thank you. I have some specific details that I'd like to add into some of the questions and public comment that were brought forward to the board today. I think one common theme that we're hearing from some of our parents is about the masks and the shields and when are they going to go away. And so one of the phone conversations that I've had with some parents, I'd like to share just some key points that I think are very important to put out there that would actually supplement some of the things Nicole had mentioned. A lot of the parents are insistent that the health orders need to change, and they want to know who's in charge to make that decision. There's been a lot of emails that are going out. Nicole mentioned some petitions, but I know I've received several of those emails. I know we've mentioned it before, but I really believe it's important to say that those health orders are governed by a state statute, and that authority is given to our state health officer. I know they're probably not the most popular thing, but I can tell you I couldn't be more proud of a school district that has been open for 4 weeks with a reopening plan that took hours upon hours upon hours to put into place. $1.9 million in grant funds that our district has utilized so far for supplies and equipment, ranging from temperature kiosks to swivel cameras to Clorox wipes to making sure we have extra custodians to help with cleaning doorknobs and bathrooms, everything that we can do to keep our schools open. Yes, we've got some issues about school lunch. I don't think anybody wants to see our kids eat lunch on a gym floor. But I can tell you that we are looking into ideas and solutions, and anything that any of our parents, anyone here in this room that you've got, we are open to hear and to look into. One of the common themes I want to rest assured for all of our parents, for our employees, and for all of our kids, that the only reason that we do have any of our kids eating on the floor and not eating off of the floor, but a place to sit, is because there was no way that administrators could find a way to socially distance and follow the orders and be able to take their masks off and their shields so that they could eat. Within our classroom space, within the area and the size of our classrooms, it just was not possible to socially distance the 6 feet and then be able to allow the children to eat in there and then follow the orders. So that is what prompted all of our administrators and our teachers to try to find an alternate way. A couple of the things about some ideas that have come out and about tables and why they work, why they don't work. Tables are a challenge for several reasons. Many of our schools have cafeterias that also are in lieu with a gymnasium for PE. They're one and the same. Some of our schools are older and they're not separate rooms. For example, this room here tonight, we have questions that come about why aren't our board meetings open to the public? Well, again, it goes to the health orders. We can't have more than 50 people in this room at one time. That's why we have to do the meetings online. But our community needs to know that as soon as we can open those up, we sure will. So for the tables. Tables are a challenge for several reasons. First of all, our schools don't have enough tables as it is. The chairs that were in Lincoln are out in one of our elementary schools already, including any of the tables that were left in the building. I can truly say that if Lincoln had any good furniture or equipment, good news travels fast. And boy, we try to get those out for our staff as quickly as possible. Our schools, we can't get enough tables into our gyms and still socially distance. So there aren't enough tables. And then when we bring those in, there isn't enough room. You can't put the people in those like you think you would. I think back to our reopening task force that we had in here. We set up our boardroom, and at that time, we were barely able to put 33 of us in here. These tables that we have are 6-foot tables. You'd have one person on either side of the tables. And so I look at the square footage of this room, and we were only able to do roughly 33. For our tables in schools, we don't have the manpower to put the tables up and down in the short time before and after lunch because our gyms are used for PE classes. Please know that we encourage any stakeholder to give us suggestions as we are interested in any other options. We know that some of our parents are sending some of their sanitizing wipe if your child has cold lunches, and they use those to wipe their hands in the area for the kids. We're not trying to downplay where our kids are having to eat in some of our schools. I visited almost every one of our schools, and I can tell you some of our kids, they don't mind sitting on the floor. They don't mind sitting in the hallways. Again, it's not ideal. I hope it's temporary, but if that's what we have to do to keep our doors open, please know it's a small price to pay to have in-person instruction. Our kids were out of school for 5 months. That's a long time. There was a question about soap and water and hand sanitizer. As a former elementary principal, it's ideal if you can do soap and water as much as possible. There's nothing like a good scrubbing, and we all know what those little darlings can do. But if soap and water are not available, that's when hand sanitizer comes into play. Nicole talked about the teacher rock stars that we've got. I want to elaborate on all of those. These were teachers that last spring really demonstrated a capacity to have teaching and technology and were able to put those into play. Not perfect, but they were able to have a colleague that other people could learn from. I think all of our staff are rock stars. Every one of them. I see the hours that they're doing. You have no idea the hours they are doing. Here is the data from our sessions. These sessions were offered 3 days. One is before school from 7 to 8. The other is after school from 4 to 5. On the first day in sessions 1, 2, and 3, we had 10, 7, and 4 attendees. That same day from 9 to 1, we had the Canvas consultant available. We had 6 people attend. That afternoon, we had 2 sessions. We had 8 and 6 people attend. The second day on September 2nd from 7 to 8, we offered 2 sessions again. One had 10, the other had 4. That afternoon from 4 to 5, we had 2 sessions. In session 1, there was 14. In session 2, there was 7. That afternoon and that whole day, we had a Canvas consultant available from 7 in the morning until 3 in the afternoon, and we had 17 that were able to attend. I'd like to clarify too that for the Canvas consultant, no subs were needed. We want to make sure that we keep our teachers in our classrooms as much as we can. Sub plans, they're a pain. 30 years as a teacher and an educator right here, sub plans are a pain. So if we can keep our teachers in, that's what we wanted to do. They could go in with their PLC teams and talk to the consultant. If those days didn't work for our staff, they had David's calendar, and they can go in and sign up on any day that he is free that works for them. It's free. It costs Sweetwater One nothing. On the third day, September 3rd, from 7 to 8, we had 9 people in the first session. And that afternoon, in 3 sessions, we had 10, 9, and 14 people that attended. I think on those sessions for the teachers, these are their colleagues. These are people that they can send an email to, they can go and visit with down the hall. And we want to offer more of these sessions as time allows. We've only been in school 4 weeks. We know it's a lot for our staff, but our district is moving in the right direction. Change is tough. And at the beginning, it was new, and nobody really knew how far this thing was going to be able to go. And the longer it goes on, that's where people lose patience. But that's where we cannot. We cannot lose patience with one another. We cannot forget the focus and that we're doing the right work. Our staff, they are rock stars. On the day that we had the virtual learning, snowstorm, what next? We've got financial issues, we've got COVID-19, we've got all kinds of changes, and then let's throw in a snowstorm. But I can tell you, the majority of emails that I got were from teachers that said, we've got this. We can do it. And we'll show you we can do it. I believe our staff can. On those video recordings, one final thought. I know some of our teachers, they don't like to learn that way. And trust me, I don't either. I learned how to set up a swivel camera. And you know what I did? I watched a video, put some pieces together, watched a little bit more video, put it together. But those technology teachers, they have done 68 videos. And those are needs that they have seen, they have witnessed from every teacher in the district. So if they're missing something, if there's something that our teachers would like to see, let us know. We're more than willing to help to make them be successful. And the videos aren't long. One of them was 1 minute and 14 seconds. Another one was 4 minutes long. If that doesn't work, Stephanie, at the beginning of our meeting, she talked about the training that we're doing for the swivel cameras. All of the academic leaders at the central office will be in the buildings to support with our principals and to help our teachers to set up not only the hardware of those cameras, but how to make those work. We want our people to be successful. We ordered the cameras months ago. Months. We're doing the very, very best that we can, and we need everybody to stay working together. We don't want to rip each other apart, because I can tell you Sweetwater One is excelling in this area. And I'm very proud of what they're doing. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. McGovern. I want to say that I do appreciate all the time that our staff is putting in. I guess I have a question with regard, you said there were 68 videos. Is there like a library of those so that people have a listing of it so that they can kind of, to me, it sounds like what I have proposed for a number of years, and that is individual professional development, so that the person can kind of pick what they need and go to that rather than everybody getting the same thing. So it sounds like it's on that kind of a system. So and these are particular things with technology?
They are. Chairman Jellicoe, fellow members of the board, it's amazing. If you go to our homepage, sweetwater1.org, and it's on the left-hand side, and you click that, it's called professional development. It'll pull up everything that is organized by category. Lenny Lou and all of the IT staff, they have taken the videos from our teachers. They're organized into categories. It is truly amazing work. And they continue to add to that. So if there's future needs that come up, they record those. And then once we get the cameras in and going, then we'll offer some more technology sessions. So if you don't learn by watching the video and you need a live person, like we offered before, we'll go ahead and we'll do those again. But yes, there's a library forum. In fact, Zach is pulling those up right now. So they're all categorized with all of the staff that's been involved.
Sorry, you can tell the categories by the different icons. So there's a Google icon for Google meetings, a Planbook icon for Planbook meetings.
Okay,
It's insane the amount of work teachers have put into this.
thank you. Thank you. Any other comments, trustees? Mr. Mickelson?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just wanted to provide a bit of information. As much as I appreciate how stressed everyone is and what a relief it is to have a place to direct that stress, we're not just board members, right? We're trustees. We have a legal fiduciary duty to protect the assets of the district and the taxpayers' money. And I know that other districts and local control are making different decisions around complying with the health orders. But if something goes wrong in those districts where they're found to be negligent in enforcing the rules, school districts are big. It's like hunting manatees, right? They're big, they're slow, and they're easy to hit. We have to do everything we can do to protect our employees, to protect our students, and to do our legal duty to protect the assets of the district. And so it is from that perspective that I'm very glad that our district is working very hard, even when it's difficult, even when it's upsetting, even when people are not having their expectations and their expected activities the way they thought they would be. We're able to provide the education, whether it's in person or online, and we're able to provide those extracurricular opportunities to students in a way that protects the interests of the district. And that's our legal job. It's what we swore an oath to do. And the district is doing that in a way that makes me feel like I can go to sleep at night knowing that I'm not going to be sued for running amok and just saying, I don't like the rules. If they decide to change the rules, the legislature, they meet January 20th this year or 12th? I mean, it's a ways off. But they've decided not to have a special session. And so Dr. Harris is empowered to make those decisions and may continue to be, because the legislature is under no certain plan to restrict her authority. And so what really we need to do as a community, because the stress levels are so high, is figure out how we can all work together to make this as positive an experience as possible. So thank you all for your efforts.
Thank you. Anyone else? Mr. Jackman?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thanks everybody for tuning in so far. I think I've been to every school except Black Butte in town since the start of the school year. My most heartbreaking moment was when I went into one of the 5-6 buildings and I saw the kids as far apart as they could possibly get them to make sure they were safe, trying to enjoy their lunch and talk to their friends and smiling and laughing. And you see the kids, the masks aren't bothering the kids. I think every staff member I talked to said that the masks were harder for them than the kids, which is really encouraging. But that brings me to the next point. I went to schools the Friday before the first day. And I think I went to 6 or 7. Every teacher was excited to be there. They were nervous, but they were all excited. Within 2 weeks, all that excitement had evaporated. And I really want to echo that our teachers are overwhelmed. And I think we need to find some sort of solution. I don't know what it is. I don't know what's exact. Maybe we look through the extra duties as assigned and cut some of them. I don't know what works. I don't know how it is a day, but I don't like seeing teachers 3 weeks into school look like it's the week before summer and they're completely drained. It's tough, and it's not what I anticipated as a board member when we implemented our plan. I felt like it would be an extra couple hours a week maybe to do the online learning. I wasn't expecting for teachers to be telling me that they're doing 2 jobs instead of 1. So, like I said, I don't know what the exact solution is, but I firmly believe a solution needs to be found.
Anyone else? I would say as a former teacher as well, I'm getting information that I have to agree with Mr. Jackman and Mr. Mickelson. Teachers are overwhelmed, and we certainly don't want them burning out. I was going to go over this later, but we spent time testifying before the Select Committee on Recalibration and telling people, the salaries we're paying and so forth, because we can't get people to come here. So we certainly don't want to lose the people that we have. And with burnout, I am very concerned. So I hope we can figure out some ways to help relieve some of the stress. I know we're all under stress. As a trustee, I don't go anywhere that I don't have comments to me. I'm getting information from teachers, from parents. We've got to work together to get through this, but I do hope that we can look at some ways to help reduce the stress. Mr. Batolo?
Madam Chair, I'd like to kind of amplify some of the things that have already been said, but my first thought is that as a teacher myself, I remember the first year. And I remember how hard that was. And I remember that the amount of work that I had to do that first year seemed to be overwhelming. And then I found a rhythm. I'm going to encourage everyone to kind of take a step back and to figure out what it is that they need and to ask for it. And then I'm going to ask us all to support as many people as we can in any way we can. I think that part of it is just acknowledging the fact that it's really hard, because you've got some teachers that have been doing this for 20 years that are really, really good at what they're doing, but literally struggling with the way that they do it. And I think what we have to do is to help them understand that it's okay to struggle. And I think that we have to continue to not be defensive about the fact that it's hard. And if we get to a point where we feel like I say we as all of us, human beings, feel like we are at a point of overwhelming people, I would suggest that we take a step back. Even if that means that we have to take a day and say, hey, listen, we plan to do this for professional development. Now we're going to do something totally different just because we need to help people in a different way. So thank you to everybody. I also appreciate the fact that we're getting comments sent to us and they're able to be answered in a timely manner. In other school board meetings, we've had questions, and sometimes what we've had to say is, we'll get back to you on that. And now with the way that we're doing business, I think that's a really positive thing, and thank you both for doing that.
Anyone else?
Chair Jellicoe, I have a question.
Mrs.
For
Bolton?
isn't one that can be answered, but it is to put it out there for everyone. By no means are we not looking for further solutions to try and ease, and it's not just the teachers. We look at our principals, you guys, they're the most exhausted I've ever seen them. I'm not going to leave it at just the principals. I look at our directors, they're the most exhausted I've ever seen them. Our custodians, our maintenance people, it's not just our teachers. This has impacted every single employee in this district, all the way up to Kelly. I mean, Kelly is a workaholic anyways, but I've never seen someone put in as many hours as she's been putting in. So it's not limited just to teachers, and I'm not being insensitive to the teachers. But what I am saying is that we have spent hundreds of hours trying to problem solve and plan for something that we have no idea what is even going to happen with it next, right? And so when people are bringing forward these concerns, they're not falling on deaf ears, but if people do not start helping with some solutions or some ideas, because we get these and then we hear, well, we don't know what to do, and we hear that all the time. Well, neither do we. Like, we're trying. We have planned as far as we can, and we need help. So if people have suggestions and they have solutions, we're willing to try stuff as long as we're able to. But when people come forward and say all of these things, it is heart-wrenching, and I cannot tell you the amount of sleep we lose. And I know this is what is killing our principals off more than anything. We're fixers, right? We see our teachers stressed. We see them struggling. And what do we want to do? We want to do whatever we can to fix this and make this better for them. And it is killing us that we can't. And so when people say, find a solution, fix it, we're trying. But what we're asking is that if you guys have suggestions or the teachers have another way to approach this, you've got to bring it forth. Because we're stuck. Like, we've had a group and we have spent hundreds of hours, and I mean hundreds of hours, when I can tell you that none of us got to any of the pieces of our job that we needed to just to traditionally open a year until almost the week before school start. I'm not exaggerating. And when I say they were 15, sometimes 16-hour days during the summer, which is unheard of. Usually you kind of get a break. I'm not exaggerating. Now, this isn't a feel sorry for me. None of us signed up for this, but what I'm asking for is we need solutions and we need suggestions. And I thank you for those people that have been looking for those or bringing them forth so that we can adjust, because we're at our edge. I don't know what else to do. Our principals don't know what else to do. We are trying. We only have so much staff. We're getting ready to go into a budget crisis that I could have never, ever, ever dreamed that we would have been in. I didn't think there could be anything worse than my first year having to be in this district, in this position, and have to do the cuts that this district had to do. Well, I can tell you, we're about to hit that tenfold. So we don't have the luxury to hire all these people to help. So whatever we can do to help, we will. But I'm asking for people to come forward and help with some solutions or suggestions, because just telling us that people are exhausted and they're burnt out, I know that. I am. I get the comments from my kids all the time. We all are, right? But we're stuck. So we need some solutions and suggestions if people want us to be able to move forward. And we do have to still follow the law.
Anyone else? I want to bring up, we had a meeting, about 10 days ago with the Sweetwater Education Association representatives, the president and vice president, and Superintendent McGovern, Mrs. Bolton, and myself. And it's a monthly meeting, so it's not anything unusual. But we talked about just these kinds of things. And one thing that I want to emphasize is something that we talked about, and that is to take the PLCs and take permission to use the PLC time to some extent for helping each other through this and assisting each other, and not necessarily strictly adhering to what PLCs are traditionally designed to do. Let's take some of that time and actually utilize it to help reduce some of the stress by working together and trying to do so. That's one of the things that we talked about, and I say that because I want that information to get out to all the employees. Anyone else? Thank you very much. Item number 5 is the treasurer's report. Mr. Jackman.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
For the general fund, we began with $7,861,694. We finished with $8,378,215. On the school lunch program, we started with $559,935, and we finished with $647,171.70. Oh, and on the Head Start, we started with $58,272, and we finished with $71,886.85.
Thank you, Mr. Jackman. I would entertain a motion to approve the treasurer's report.
So moved.
It's been moved by Mr. Mickelson. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Hay. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion passes. Mr. Jackman, the warrants.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Warrants from August 12, 2020 to September 11, 2020 totaling $5,813,678.68. Check number 138496 through 139092. I do have a conflict to declare. I don't remember which number it is. Jackman Construction. There should be 2 checks.
Okay, is there a motion?
So moved.
It's been moved by Mr. Mickelson. Is there a second?
Second.
I'm sorry,
Second.
second by Mr. Batolo. Okay, all in favor, please say aye.
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 Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion passes. Consent agenda item number 7. All matters listed under the consent agenda are matters about which the board has governing policies, implementation of which is delegated to the superintendent. They will be enacted in one motion in the order listed below. There will be no discussion of these items prior to the time the Board of Trustees votes on the motion unless members of the board request specific items to be held and discussed separately and/or removed from this section. Minutes. 7A, approval of the minutes from the August 10th, 2020 regular meeting. Finance. 7B, approval of the official bond and oath for the school superintendent. 7C, approval of the purchase and bid for the financing of one bus. 7D, approval of a resolution authorizing the district to lease a bus with an option to purchase. Personnel. 7E, approval of personnel recommendations. General board business. 7F, approval to authorize the Title VIII Impact Aid Survey date of October 7th, 2020. Facilities. 7G, approval of the bid for the Farson Eden School landscape project. Transportation. 7H, approval of the repair of bus number 65. 7I, approval of the bids for district fleet vehicles. Hearing none to be held, is there a motion to approve items 7A through 7I?
Move to approve.
Motion by Mr. Hay, second.
I'll second.
Second by Mr. Jackman. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion passes. Okay, we have an addendum. Item number 1 on the addendum, Sweetwater County School District Number 1 Head Start is requesting approval to receive $235,000 in a one-time health and safety grant and prior approval to accept grant funds for the remaining amount in spring 2021, not to exceed $304,400 to replace an outdated fire alarm system and install a fire suppression system at Washington School. Head Start previously submitted a grant request for the first amount to the Head Start Regional Office. Okay, is there a motion?
Move to approve.
It's been moved by Mr. Mickelson. Is there a second?
Second,
Second by Mrs. Thompson. Any discussion?
I just want to thank Jenner for generously helping us out with this project.
Absolutely, absolutely. Okay, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion passes. The second item on the addendum is recommendation for the post-approval to Vaughn's Plumbing and Heating Company for the emergency cooler replacement at Rock Springs Junior High in the amount of $84,681.75. Is there a motion?
So moved.
It's been moved by Mr. Jackman. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mrs. Thompson. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
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 Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion passes. Item number 8, new business. This is a discussion on a cost savings task force. I want to elaborate a little bit on Mrs. Bolton's comments. Last Wednesday, Superintendent McGovern, Mr. Duncan, and myself testified before the Select Committee on Recalibration. And they kept asking the question, what are you doing in your communities to discuss the options that communities are willing to do? What are we going to do to help facilitate the budget cuts that are coming? I spoke with the School Boards Association Executive Director when the governor asked for districts to consider 10% voluntary cuts. And he and one of his staff members approached the governor and asked, what does that mean? What does 10% involuntary cuts mean? And the executive director resides in Laramie and is a former board member for the Laramie 1 school district. And he said, do you understand that in Laramie 1, a 10% cut means 200 salaries, 200 people? You know, when we testified last Wednesday, we expressed the idea that, first of all, we have 282 fewer students than a year ago. That's about 5% of our student body. And that amounts to basically a 5% cut because of the model self-corrects. If you don't have the students, you don't get the money. So there's close to a 5% cut there. Superintendent McGovern relayed to the committee that in our case, a 10% cut would be approximately 90 positions, 90 teachers. That's 3/4 of our high school. So we had a discussion, and the reason that this discussion on a cost savings task force is on the agenda is to start having those conversations with our community about what kind of cuts we are willing to see. So with that, Mrs. McGovern, would you like anything to say?
Thank you, Chair Jellicoe. The only thing I would add is when we did this a couple of years ago, it actually worked well in a really difficult situation. One thing that, and it would totally be under the purview of this board, is if we assembled the task force, I think we could build upon the capacity of doing this before. So we could continue the things on there that worked really well as part of that process, and then fine tune things that did not. If it worked for the board, if there are certain things that you would like to see as part of that cost savings task force, please let me know for that. And then also for the number of trustees, I don't know, Kara, if you want to talk about that a little bit.
I will. Yes, I think we've talked a little bit, and similar to some of the previous task forces that we had, I'm going to ask for 2 trustee participants, and they would be actual participants, rather than observers. So if trustees, you're interested in sitting on that committee, please let me know. And we're going to look at 2 people. And then we're going to extend it out to employees, extend it to community members, business members, students as well and stuff. But these are going to be some very difficult discussions that are going to be had, and to be able to go back to our legislators and say, yes, we have had these conversations and this is what our community is willing to do. There is some talk, and this is purely talk, that because we keep hearing there are significant number of legislators and some new ones coming on following, it will be in January when the session starts, that are committed to no new taxes. Unfortunately, we cannot cut ourselves out of this. There's going to have to be some income revenue increases. And one that's being bantered around is a 1 cent a penny tax, sales tax dedicated to education. Now that would certainly help education fill the hole, because we have about a $250 million hole a year. That doesn't help the rest of the state, but because they have just as much. So, I mean, at this point, they're battering around things that, you know, what are districts willing to do at that level? But it's also going to require some action at the state level about what can be done to increase some revenue. So there's finally, I think, a realization that some of the energy that we have relied on for years, particularly coal, is not coming back. And we've had legislators over the past several years that just keep waiting for the next boom. And unfortunately, I don't see one on the horizon. So comments? Anyone from any trustees?
I'll volunteer.
Okay, Mr. Jackman, okay,
As treasurer, it's probably something I should volunteer for.
okay. We would like to. Anyone else? Let me know. Mr. Batolo?
Yes.
Okay. There's our 2 trustees. Any other comments? Any other thoughts?
Madam Chair,
Mr. Batolo?
as we consider this committee to do a cost-saving task force, I don't know what the criteria is for us to choose the people that are on that committee. But what I would like us to consider is to get as wide a diversity as we can and as wide a business, and I know we do that. I just want to reinforce that idea of that, because I think this task force could actually be of value to us in 2 folds. One, they could help us prioritize possibly, but a second thing they could do is they could hear the truth, and they could bring that truth to their groups and their communities, their businesses. So as we do that, I think it could help in 2 instances. So I'd encourage us to do that.
Anyone else with comments?
Madam Chair,
Mrs. Thompson?
last time I served on the cost savings task force, and I do recall that the way we went about setting up the task force was noticed by the entire state. I do recall that we went to a Wyoming School Boards Association conference, and we even gave a presentation on our process because the state was looking at this district as a leader. So I would highly suggest that we kind of stick with the process that we used last time, because not only did I believe it worked very well, but we were recognized for it on a state level. And if the state is taking notice of what we're doing to try to solve a very huge issue, I think we should look to try to do that again.
Okay. Anyone else? Okay, I don't know that we need to adopt, anything. I think we just move forward with, we'll set up the dates and so forth and put out inquiries about people who might be interested. So thank you. Item number 9, board information on the alternative calendar 4-day school week update. Mrs. Bolton?
Yes, thank you, Chair Jellicoe, Superintendent McGovern, and members of the board. I have finished the needs assessment to go out to the community, so I'm actually sending that to the individuals at the college to review and revise and refine, as they're the experts with it, not me. I'm also getting ready to send an email out to the district. We will start the calendar committee actually first. and get that ran through so that we have an idea of dates and what weeks look like. And then we will have committees, different separate committees that are going out to the community, such as, I'm assuming, it depends what the needs assessment will come back as, but, you know, based off of childcare needs and different things that come that way. We will also have planning committees, of which our director of curriculum, Jody Garner, will also play a big part in the developing of what the professional development days will look like and rotating those and different things. As the intent that the committee had for when they proposed this. And so the ball is getting rolling. As I had kind of talked to you about prior, I'm really not starting to push too much until at least the beginning to mid-October, because we really are trying to lay off of the teachers and stuff, giving them a chance to try to get their feet under them and get, you know, I guess, as used to this as you can and making adjustments before we start throwing on just the everyday work that the school district has altogether anyways. So the ball is rolling. We're going to start making progress. So the updates should be more in depth as we go.
Thank you. Item number 10, the board self-evaluation. This month we had the instruction responsibilities. So we'll have that discussion now. Anyone want to start? Maybe I should go through the items, each item, and read through it so that the community as well as our staff understands what we're looking at. So under the instruction responsibilities, there are 10 items. The first, the board sets a clear direction for the district by establishing the district vision, mission, goals, educational philosophy, and student achievement targets for the instructional program of the district based upon the needs and values of the community. 2, the board provides a quality educational program imposing high individual academic achievement standards for each student. 3, the board provides alternative instructional programs for non-traditional students. 4, the board ensures that the district curriculum and instructional programs meet or exceeds all state requirements established by the State Department of Education, the State Board of Education, or the United States Department of Education. 5, the board only adopts recommendations from the superintendent regarding changes to the instructional program after a careful study of all available data. 6, the board regularly reviews student achievement data on district, state, and national measures. 7, the board recognizes student accomplishments. 8, the board promotes a positive, consistent approach to student discipline. 9, the board regularly reports to the community on the status of education in the district. And 10, the board identifies and adopts graduation requirements and provides information related to post-high school educational opportunities to students and parents. Okay, then I will open it to discussion by the board. One thing I will mention, one of the things that I have really missed tonight is the opportunity to recognize both student and staff accomplishments. So I hope we can figure something out in this virtual situation where we can continue to do that. I felt very good about that early, before the virus struck, and that's one of the things with the virtual meetings that we've not been able to accommodate. So I hope we can maybe take a look at that particular option, because I think that's important for our students as well as our staff to recognize their accomplishments. Anyone else?
Carol?
Mr. Matt Jackman.
Chairman Kurtalico. A slideshow with their school picture, telling what they did?
Some ideas.
I don't know how much effort that takes to put together, because you probably have to get permission from the student to have their picture shown.
That's a thought.
Yeah.
That's certainly a thought. Anyone else?
Madam Chair,
Mr. Vitolo.
as I looked at this document, this instruction responsibilities, The only thing, I think we do a pretty good job of a lot of things, but one area that I looked at that I felt like we needed to maybe take a slightly different look at is the way that we use data. I would advocate for us to take a look at 6th grade data as far as course subjects and 9th grade data, and to try and use that data to be as diagnostic as we can to help our kids graduate. And that's really the only comment I have on that one.
Okay. Anyone else? Mr. Mickelson?
Just briefly, I think this is an area that the board does a fairly solid job. I mean, there's always room to grow, but these are all areas that routinely happen. I know I've had some feedback from people who would like communication sort of reports to the community to be in simpler language, but oftentimes it's very technical data that's being reported on, and there's only so much that you can do to do that. And I don't know if there's maybe a narrative that could be provided to improve on the communicability of the information that we're handing out. But I think the board does this area fairly well. Thank you.
Okay. Anyone else? Well, then, as we did last time, the scoring is 4 always, 3 mostly, 2 sometimes, 1 need to improve. If each of you would just give me a score as where you think the district is on, or where the board is, excuse me, I want to clarify that. This is the board's action, not the district's action, but where the board sits in this particular category as we move to look at how the board is functioning. Mr. Jackman, would you like to start?
Sure. I'll give us a solid 3.
Okay, a 3. Okay. Mrs. Thompson?
I gave us a solid 3, except for on the board recognitions of the students. I felt like we're at 4 when we can actually do it.
Uh-huh.
But I'd like to do, I'm all for, if people want to play instruments and submit that, I'll listen to it. I love that stuff.
Mhm.
Play your instrument. I love hearing them sing. I miss that. That was my favorite part of the meeting.
Yeah.
Not that I don't love this stuff. I just really love shaking those kids' hands and watching them sing, and I miss that, and I hope they miss it too, because it's a big deal, I think, to come to the board, and I always thought we did a really good job of that.
Thank you. And if I understood, a solid 3?
Solid 3.
Okay. Mr. Hay?
Solid 3.
Okay. Mr. Mickelson?
3.
Mr. Batolo?
3 also.
3. Mr. Reedy? Not sure if he's there.
A solid 3.
Solid 3. And I too will do a 3. As I said, as I think we all said, there's always room for improvement, but I think this is one area that we have been fairly good at. I want to remind us that next month, October, is going to be facilities, transportation, and food service, followed by November will be student services. So probably next month, if you come with some ideas, maybe we'll go ahead and extend the calendar a little bit to December and January. So if you have some thoughts as to what you would like to include moving forward. Good of the order. Good of the order. Anyone? Okay, I already mentioned the Select Committee on Recalibration where we testified last Wednesday. I sent an invitation to each of you last night regarding the listening session with the governor this Wednesday, the 16th, from 10 to 11 a.m. There is a place where you can submit if you're able to listen in on that and stuff. So it should be interesting to hear what the governor has to say. And I think there's going to be some exchange going back and forth. If you have some questions, there's also a place where you can submit a question to Brian to make sure that the governor answers it. So that's something moving forward. Anyone else have anything good of the order?
I do. I'd like to throw out a big thank you for everything that Kelly and Nicole and everybody has done to get everything running smoothly for opening the school, getting students back. We do have things that are an issue, but as far as I'm concerned, they've done a backup job, and kudos to everyone. Thank you.
I would echo that. I think, to not have a known case at this point, either staff or students, when you see what's going on in the country, I think that's a real plus for the people that worked on that plan and the implementation of the plan. I mean, yes, we're working through some issues, but that's I think, nothing is perfect. We're going to need to work through those issues, and we will continue to do so. So thank you to everyone as well. New business, 12A, the vacancy notice as of September 3rd, 2020. It looks a whole lot better than it did last year, even realizing that we have absorbed some of the positions, but it does look better. 12B, the calendar for the months of September, October, November, and December 2020. 12C, the August 2020 Head Start Liaison Report. And is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
It's been moved by Mr. Mickelson. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Jackman. We are adjourned.